Okay, good evening. This is Jory Vandenberg. I'm the 388 Fighter Wing historian, and I'm currently conducting a series of interviews of the 388th Bombardment Group Heavy at their 63rd annual 388th Bomb Group reunion in Savannah, Georgia. The date is the 2nd of September, 2012, and I'm currently interviewing the following individual.
My name, Charlie Meyer, Charles A. Meyer, M-E-Y-E-R. I thought that in all the time.
Okay.
Look
at me.
Okay. And I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I grew up until 12 in Flatbush, the old Flatbush, fighting with the old Brooklyn Dodgers, etc., etc.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, I'm in the process of moving back to New Jersey.
Okay.
I spent the past 55 years, 20 years in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
And
That's a tough
25 years here in Florida. Here in Florida, we're in Georgia now.
Okay.
On my way back to New Jersey, cold country. I don't know how long I'm going to. The first snowstorm, I'll probably head south again.
Okay.
What else can I tell you?
Okay. What was your job in, you ended up being with the 388th Bombardment Group. What was your job with that?
I was bombardier, man up front, seeing everything. Beautiful view up there,
And that big,
sometimes
beautiful
not
bubble
so
window.
beautiful.
Okay.
That was when we arrived there in April of 1944.
Okay.
And the crew flew 35 missions, I flew 34 of them.
Okay.
I was grounded once for a day,
Okay.
and I tried my darndest to catch up to them by volunteering with another crew, odd crew stuff. And the only trouble with that is, after 3 missions I was supposed to go on were aborted before we got to target.
Okay.
So I said, Charlie, I think you better just stay and forget about the volunteering bit.
Okay. There's a reason.
Because it wasn't a good idea to push my luck that
You were
long.
pushing your luck, weren't you?
Yeah.
And you were smart enough to recognize that.
That's right.
All right.
So anyway, I flew 34 of the missions there. Arrived home, was in September 1st, I think I finally arrived home.
Of what year?
We finished our missions on August 13 in 44.
Okay.
And we were home by September 2nd or 3rd.
Okay.
My mother was very fortunate in that my kid brother, was flying before I was in B-24s. And of course there was the usual B-24 against the B-17s.
B-17s.
We had a lot of fun with that over the years, by the way.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this.
Sure.
When did you first enlist?
First enlist, I didn't enlist. There was a thing called selective service back in 1940. And when you were 21, you signed up and they had a lottery.
Okay.
The first and only lottery I ever won. Because in April I got word that I was about to be drafted. I was 1A.
Okay.
And that was the end of my 21-year-old fun.
Okay.
My mother told me at the time, a year in service will straighten you out, young man.
There you go. You'll grow up, be a man.
4.5 years later, I come home and said, Mom, that was a heck of a long year.
Yeah.
And I did not say heck.
Yeah.
At any rate, that started my career as before the war, naturally.
So you got drafted in April of 1940?
I know it was June 23rd that I was enlisted by selective service.
You were selected by the service board to come into
you were 1A, young man.
Okay.
I found myself shaking our neighbor's hand, him handing me a great big fat fountain pen, and on my way to Fort Dix.
Okay, so you went to Fort Dix initially?
And from there, I went to Fort Bragg. I was stationed in field artillery for 13 weeks boot camp.
Boot camp, okay.
which was a rather different experience than what I'd had for the few years before it.
Okay.
So they really trained us, and I mean trained us, mostly to fix the officers' club and the officers' golf course, etc.
Okay. All right.
But
you were being
it was
trained
something.
initially for artillery?
Yeah. After that, after 13 weeks were up, I was driving a truck actually, hauling French 75s around and shooting them off, that kind of stuff, all cannoneer bit and all that.
Okay.
And either I was too dumb or too smart, they shipped me up to Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indiana. It was a reception center bringing new recruits in from the outside selective service for the whole area, Kentucky, Tennessee, etc. So that lasted until one day, sitting in my barracks on a Sunday and listening to the radio, reading Reader's Digest or something, and out of the clear blue sky, I hear something about Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
And I said, Pearl Harbor? And I started to listen, and I had supposedly serving 1 year. I had served 6 years, 6 months at that time, and my 1 year career went out the window and lasted till I was November 1st, 1945, after when the war ended. That's when I finished my career. Was appointed in inactive service.
Went in inactive reserve.
And I was inactive service till I finally was separated, discharged honorably in 1957. So that don't count as for anything through those 15 years. But
they never paid you for any of that. So
yeah.
never
so
would.
at any rate, that was in total about 4.5 years in service.
Okay.
And I always like to say that my mom said, a year in service will straighten you out, young man.
All right.
And I said, Mom, when I got home, that was that tale about 4.5 years, a long, long time after telling me I was going to have a year. Anyway, to get back to my service time, I was in Fort Bragg and then spent about another 2 years in Indianapolis. But there...
And that whole time you were in artillery?
Yeah, no, I was in artillery. I'd say DEML, they call it Detached Enlisted Men's List. That's what I was transferred to in Fort there. And from there I went PVT and gradually worked my way all the way up to sergeant in the 2.5 years I was there.
Okay.
And I saw that the guy with that thing up here on his shoulder, had a heck of a better life than I did with the stripe on my shoulder.
Okay.
I took a 3-day pass, went up to Lafayette, Indiana, Purdue University, and took the aviation cadet set.
Okay.
Passed that set for pilot, co-pilot, a pilot, or navigator or bombardier.
Okay.
So I chose the pilot naturally like everybody else, and that started off my career.
You remember the date when you took that test? Do you remember the date?
It was in, I'd say November. I don't remember the exact date. It was in November sometime.
Was it November 42?
That was 41.
November 41. So it was before the Pearl Harbor thing, but you were already forward thinking.
Right.
Yeah, maybe I ought to be an officer. And the only way to be an officer is either get college or they'll let you in as an air cadet.
Yeah. But anyway, from there, went to, they sent me for training out in California. Spent 13 or 15 weeks in training, just training.
Okay, do you remember what base you went to? What field, airfield you went to?
Yeah, it was down in, wound up flying in King City, California.
Okay.
I went down below Barbara, can't remember the name of the
Santa
town.
Barbara?
That town,
Santa
sure.
Barbara's an island, but no.
Anyway, below Los Angeles. Anyway.
Okay, below that, okay.
And we went up to King City in California. It's up above San Francisco.
Okay,
So we stayed up there during primary training. At primary, we went to school first,
okay,
and then we went up for the other training.
okay,
And I lasted there for 22 plus solo. Finally soloed, and I went on a check flight with Army. They came up and checked you out every now and again, see how you were doing.
okay.
I thought I was doing pretty good, but he says I tried to kill him by trying to spin, and I whip-stole the plane,
Oh, yeah.
and I knew I was wrong. And I think the report went through that I went back was trying to kill him, and that was the end of my pilot training.
True. Okay.
Broke my little heart, believe me, it broke my heart.
Getting in
I
a stall is
didn't
totally different than getting into a spin. A spin is a lot easier to get out of.
But anyway,
Yeah, you know.
I went from there. I tried for navigation school, but it was all filled up. And then bombardiering came along, and I went and had 13 weeks training down in Roswell, New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
I got my commission, which was very good.
Cool.
Okay.
And let me ask you a real quick question. When was it you went down to Roswell? You remember the date? Date you went down to do that?
Well, I remember the date I got out of. I got October 23rd. You backtrack 13
Okay.
weeks on that and
13.
find that out.
It's about 4 months before, so about July?
Yeah.
July, August.
Right.
No, about the end of July, early
Back
August.
in July, yeah.
Okay, early August you showed up at Roswell.
Well, I
Okay.
went to Roswell.
Roswell
We had
Airfield.
some pretty good training down there.
Okay.
I believe we did, yeah.
For bombardier stuff.
Right.
What was the bombing range you went into to drop bombs? Do you remember?
Down there, we lower around 12,000 something. That was Beechcraft AT-11s, the twin engine.
Twin engine jobbers.
Yeah, and that was all low. We didn't have oxygen set up
No.
with that one, but we had quite a deal there. Let's see, trying to think of that. If you cut that off a second, let me get my wits. Okay, I'll continue.
Okay.
All right. From there, we were assigned to Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, to get crewed up
Okay.
to the crew.
So this is not
Unfortunately,
end of October, early November of
it was-
40. What were we up to? 42,
43.
43. Okay.
Yeah, 43. Because I graduated in 43. If you
From bombardier school?
on there, about bombardier school, and it was after that we went up to Utah to get crewed up. We put on somebody's crew at the time.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough planes ready at the time. We were there for a couple of months. We didn't do any flying at all. I was assigned with Douglas G. MacArthur, was my pilot,
Okay.
his crew. And I was surprised, no relation to the other Douglas MacArthur. And we sat there for, as I say, about 2 months. And we were sent to Dyersburg, Tennessee for training
Okay.
in B-17s.
All right. You remember the date of that?
Yeah, that was, we were there for maybe 2 months. We flew overseas. After we more or less graduated, they taught the pilot how to pilot a four-engine plane.
Okay.
And we did that during the winter. It wasn't the winter of 43, 44, right?
Okay.
I just seem to have lost. I'm 93 years old
Yes,
now,
sir.
so
Yeah, I'm
I
trying
have reason to
to keep track of the
forget
years also.
forget a few things,
Okay.
specifics. But we were shipped out of there from Dyersburg. We were assigned to Kearney, Nebraska, to pick up a plane and fly it over to England.
Okay.
A brand new B-17 we had.
Brand new jobber. Well, that's
And
nice.
that was a good deal. It was a good, very good deal. Anyway, we flew from there. My wife was with me, by the way, during my
Okay.
a lot of my career with the.
When did you get married,
388.
by the way?
We got married just before I took the test for that. Prior to that, if you were married, you couldn't get into the Air Corps. That was the rule.
Oh, okay.
So at any rate, they had to kick that down because they thought couldn't get the applicants in that they wanted.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Because they had too many
did
married
allow
people that
the
wanted to apply.
marriage, yeah.
Okay.
I made corporal actually in Indiana. When I made corporal, I had a week's leave come. I went home. We got married. We got married on Thursday. I went back to camp on Saturday. It was a very short honeymoon.
Okay.
But
Make
anyway,
up for that
to a
later,
wonderful girl, used to carry my books home from school, that kind of stuff. Her answer to that was she was so smart that she didn't have to take her own books home. But anyway, it was a good deal. We just celebrated our 70th anniversary, so
Sweet.
it held. One of those quickie wartime marriages that would never last.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was good.
She was good. Well,
Put up
because
with my nonsense anyhow.
I think the advantage, you were with her for a long time before you actually went away.
Yeah.
A lot of the wartime ones, they get
I
married
knew
and
the
immediately
girl a
went
long
away.
time,
It's
yeah.
kind of like,
And then she followed us to Dyersburg. She was with me in
Okay.
Dyersburg. And also they drove out to Kearney, Nebraska to see us off.
okay.
So that's when we flew from Nebraska. So two girls, the other guy's wife, and her were at the end of the runway watching us take off for England. We flew into Manchester, New Hampshire, got stuck there for a couple of days, then on to Newfoundland, Iceland, and across. We got to Ireland. We landed in Ireland.
Okay.
And they took the plane away from us, put us on a boat, shipped us across the Irish Sea, I guess it was, heading for 388.
Okay.
On our first day there, we were lined up for chow. Officers lined up for chow too, every now and again. And we're on there, and the plane comes over shooting red flares, which meant that had somebody injured aboard, or they had a problem like that. He landed, the co-pilot landed the thing, the plane okay, but as they flew over our head, when the engines blew up, and we had sprinkled on my first day at the 388.
Wow.
And as it's going to go, I think they crash landed more or less. The pilot had been shot, he'd been killed, and they come back with the pilot, the co-pilot brought the ship back, etc.
Welcome to Netteshaw.
Yeah.
Do you remember the exact date of when that was, when you arrived? Right back.
Yeah, I'm
right there.
not good on exact days
Okay.
anymore.
Or
I'm
pretty
sorry.
close.
We arrived there.
Month and
We
year.
arrived there, and it was early April.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway.
So it's be April of 44?
Yeah, of 44. That's
April
right.
44.
My deal with 388 was all 44. Yeah.
Okay. So April 44, you're arriving at Netteshaw, and your
we
introduction to
arrived, and that
Netteshaw was an
our
engine
greeting.
overhead with an engine that blew up over
So
your head.
my pilot, the pilot had lived in the same Nissan hut that we were residents of during our term there.
Okay.
And he got this other fella's bed. They cleaned out as quickly as possible when they had a death or anybody dead or injured,
Okay.
especially when they died. Anyway, Doug MacArthur used his bed, but everything was cleared. We didn't know at the time who it was, but his crew came over and held a wake that night. And I was writing a letter to my wife that had just arrived, and I couldn't finish the letter. I just couldn't, because it was a shock.
Yeah.
Shock. First day there, a shock. But things happen.
Things happen.
Yeah. And from there, we did our missions
Okay.
all the way along. it's day after day, or skip a day here, etc. We flew a lot of missions. We first were assigned Old 66. That was the name of the ship.
Okay.
It's B-17 Old D, I think it was.
Okay.
BD.
And what was the name of the?
That was Old.
The name was Old
name
66.
Was Old 60. It was a war weary. The idea was new crews do not get new planes.
Okay. So you inherited the name.
If you made 5 or 6 missions and you got pretty close to 10, well then you got a halfway decent plane.
Okay.
But because if you were going to get gunned down, you usually got it on your first few missions.
Okay. It's because you're flying a piece of junk plane.
Right. But
it's already been beat up, so it's less likely to survive. Okay, but anyway, so you got the Old 66.
We got I think we flew 6 missions in that. It's a wonderful ship. It had a half-inch steel plate under my butt in the seat there.
Yeah, that was an after thing, because the hole that was there before.
It had a lot of engine trouble. And we came back, I know, at least twice on 2 engines after the missions. They weren't very long missions, but they were missions.
Okay. Let me ask you, who was your crew? Who was the crew that you ended up with?
That was Doug MacArthur was the pilot. Stamos, Orestes, Zades was co-pilot. We call him. He was a flight officer. That was the difference they were giving out. That weren't entitled to being a second lieutenant when they got the commission. But he was a commissioned flight officer, so we called him FOSO. Tom Miller was a navigator.
Okay.
That made up, MacArthur and myself made up the 4 officers on the crew.
Okay.
The top turret gun was a young fella, William Kuhn, the youngest guy in the crew. He was only about 18 at the time, I guess.
Okay.
Real young one.
He's the baby.
Radio man was Bob Ward. Bob Ward was his name, just Bob, good old Texas boy.
Okay.
Okay. The waist gunner was Van Vactor. I think it was William Van Vactor. He was a waist gunner. Lee K. Thon, Than, he was a Chinese boy, was the other waist gunner. And Bruce Lawson was our tail gunner, and little Hank Evans was our ball turret guy. He was shorter than I was, so he wound up as ball turret gunner.
Lucky him.
So that was our whole crew.
Okay.
Now, I found out that you did not get friendly with most other guys unless you knew them going to one of your Army training school. So a crew was a crew because too much happened when you got too attached to somebody else, put it that way. So anything we did as a crew mainly. They had segregation against, enlisted men and officers were not allowed to get mixed up. But going back a bit to the Dyersburg deal, every Saturday night we were down in Memphis, Tennessee in the Claridge Hotel, and we had a heck of a good time every Saturday night. Practically every Saturday night we were there.
Okay.
Up at the old Claridge Hotel. I remember it so well. I made a whole booklet on it, incidentally.
Oh.
And one of them shows a bill from Claridge Hotel. As an officer, I had a suite, and the enlisted personnel and the rest of them all wound up with just a room. So my suite was a gathering place for this until we went up to the Bolly Room or something or other was the name of it. I have a copy of that bill. I think it was, I don't know, $3 a night or something or other like that, such thing altogether for my thing. The boys pay about $2 for theirs per room, maybe a little higher. I'd have to read the book. I'd have to read the book myself to remember. Anyway, we had a wonderful time there with us up at Saturday nights. I was going back. Another
Yes, sir.
story attached, I won't tell you that one.
Okay.
Anyway, there we were in Nettershaw. We finally went to Nettershaw. A great bunch all the way through. We had maybe 12 crews, 12 officers per bunk in these
Okay.
Nissan huts. And it was a thing, we flew so much, you didn't, you know, it was day after day after day after day after day practically, so we built up a lot of missions in a hurry.
Okay.
Get back to old 66, after coming back a couple of times on 2 ends, and we felt we were becoming big timers, lasted that long. I guess it was after the 6th mission, we all squawked, how about giving us a little better plane to fly in.
Okay.
At any rate, they gave us a pass. Figure we were getting flat happy, as they used to say. Give us a couple of weeks, a couple of days off anyhow.
Okay.
And we came back, and then we started doing our regular flying with a better plane. So it held us. We loved that B-17 because it took an awful beating and still brought you back home. That was a beautiful plane. Yeah. But anyway, we had Girl of Our Dreams was the one that we got to name. That was the
Okay.
name of our ship, Girl of Our Dreams.
Girl of our
We
dreams.
didn't fly that all the time. Everybody shared. Whatever plane was ready, you flew, that kind of thing.
Okay. But that was your favorite?
But then we flew D-Day come along.
Okay.
We flew 2 missions on D-Day. The first
Okay.
one was one of the early missions.
Okay.
We'd been to London again. We got a couple of days off every now and again when they thought we should take a little rest.
Okay. You need a little break.
Anyway,
3-day pass.
We were there on until the 5th. We come back to base on the 5th. We saw the very few uniforms running around in London. Didn't think too much about it. That was when London was getting the V-bombs overhead all the time. They were taking a hell of a beating. How they
Okay.
lived through that, I'll never know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got back to base on the evening of the 5th. And then we found that little letter from Dwight D. Eisenhower telling us we were embarking on this thing. So we didn't get much sleep that night at all, truthfully.
Thank you.
Didn't get any sleep at all, I don't think. Anyway, we were set to, our group 380s was the first one to hit Normandy, do the bombing in Normandy side. That's where our boys went. That was in the morning and didn't see much. We didn't have to see much at all because it's always cloud coverage over in England, no matter what, or rainy. But we flew not quite our usual height, but it was a little lower than normal. Normally we flew 28 to 30,000 feet. Anyway, we were to bomb by such and such time. I think maybe it was 7:02 or something like. If you hadn't dropped your bombs by that time, you keep them because our guys were hitting the beach then.
Okay.
There was a time limit on that. But they also had a rule, if you were flying the channel and you had any problems, tough luck, because the only traffic they allowed was heading east for the raid. So anything flying in the other direction was liable to get shot down. So that was the rule. You do not
Okay.
turn around and
Okay.
head back for England until after
It's
we
been
flew
a
around
one-way trap.
Cherbourg Peninsula and came back that way. So we did that. We got back, I guess, about 11 o'clock or so.
This is on your very first mission?
Uh,
What time did you launch that morning? Do you remember?
about 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock in the morning? Okay.
The plane, every mission started, you just made circled until you hit to
Altitude?
Oxygen altitude, about 12,000 feet.
Okay.
And I used to go back as bombardier and I pulled the pins on my bombs and armed them. That was
Okay.
my little chore there to start off with. Because all of a sudden you break through the clouds and beautiful sunshine. And that's when I got out and did that, and then we headed for they made a group. Now there were so many planes, so many groups in a very limited area, believe me, in East Anglia there. I don't know just how many, but they were all over the place. So you know how big an airport is. Today even, these were smaller airports, but these were only 10, 15 miles apart.
Yeah.
You'd practically be in the same path, but everybody was spiraling up to form the group after we broke through the clouds at oxygen time. That was around 12,000 feet, and we headed for the coast, headed across the coast. Then on your flight, etc. But that day we flew, the first one, came back about 11.
Okay.
We went off again, I guess around 2, 3 o'clock on our second trip on D-Day. And then it had cleared up a bit, and they had practically a train of boats heading in that direction. That's what they were already heading.
Okay.
So we bombed a little further inland on it and back again.
Do you remember exactly what specific areas along the Normandy
It was
beach?
Normandy, around Caen, in
Caen?
that area. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's, what was the name of the other one? Something I'll think about it in time.
Okay.
But at any rate, that was, we did a lot of bombing in just that area, but it was Normandy. You know, the British were up the line, but up a little further where they were heading.
Okay.
Yeah, but we were in the Normandy section where all the guys are buried right now. Didn't make it. But we didn't see a hell of a lot down there. We were still up at the 12,000, 14,000 feet or something.
Okay.
Probably higher.
Still up pretty high.
But at any rate, we did see a little then. And then we did the usual thing, riding around the Cherbourg Peninsula to get back to England. And the pilot asked the navigator, said, "How are we doing?" It was getting dark. The navigator said, "I think we'll make it." And all of a sudden, a couple of minutes later, he says, "Mac, you better take it down. We're running out of gas."
Okay.
So he takes it out, said, "Find a field." The only field we landed on, Colonel Zemke's P-47 fighter group,
Okay.
which was a little distance away from Nettershaw. So we stayed there all night. Went over to the old club naturally. That was what you had to do.
Yeah.
And we sat sitting with the fighter guys. And I remember one of them comes sidling over to us and said, "We would give you a little closer support if you'd stop shooting at us." Because they looked just like the German plane,
Okay.
folks, right? At any rate, it was a little humor.
Just kind of inside
So they
joke.
flew us back to Nettershaw the next morning, and that was that. Then we went on from there, the usual thing, until 23rd of June. We wound up going to Poltava.
Ah, so
Poltava.
you went to Poltava.
You know, and Poltava was pretty much a mess. We dropped our bombs in Ruhland in East Germany, and we dropped down to altitude, down to 12,000, so we had lunch, just taking the rest of the trip over to Poltava, Kiev area.
Okay. That was in Russia, right?
All of a sudden, I'm chewing on my K-ration, beautiful caramel candies in there. All of a sudden, there's some planes coming at us. What in heaven's name are planes coming at us? So everybody stopped or get on the guns, rat-tat-tat-tat. I think I saw about 6 of them, if I remember, just flew right through our thing. I think they only hit one of our, actually they only damaged one of our B-17s. I think we lost one man in that.
Okay.
Well, maybe that was wrong. Anyway, that happened, and we
Were they German fighters?
German fighters. See, well, my thinking was it was school or something in that far deep in Germany. It was real deep near Warsaw. We passed Warsaw en route, and we saw the action going on there. The Germans and the Poles were at it at that time. No, the Russians and the Poles were erupting against the Russians. That's what it was. Yeah. And we flew on from there into Poltava. We landed there in the afternoon.
Okay.
And we were supposed to fly missions from there to East Germany, and then down to Italy and bomb a couple of missions there on our way back to England.
Okay.
Didn't quite work out that way.
Didn't work out that way. What do you think happened?
Anyway, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, opened the tent flap we were laying in, to one of the most beautiful 4th of July celebrations I ever saw in my life. Until all of a sudden I heard, boom, one of our bombers, one of our B-17s blew up. They were dropping incendiaries.
Okay.
And
So the Germans had followed y'all over to
they
figure out where you
came
were.
over, as I said, I looked up and you could see the Russian aircraft, anti-aircraft was shooting at them then.
Okay.
And with the searchlights, you pick them right up, going over. We were all lined up like that. They come over and knew which way we were going.
Yeah.
And went this way the first time, knocked out a hell of a lot of planes. Come back about 1 o'clock or so, a little an hour or so later, went this way, hell of bad damage. But that was all classified at the time. We don't talk about that.
Yeah.
It's still classified. I'm liable
It's
to be
unclassified
dragged back
now.
in at 93.
Yeah.
Get quartermaster. Anyway,
No,
court-martial.
the 25 years is over.
Yeah.
Usually they're classified
But
for
anyway,
25 years, but
That most of us
Okay.
flew back. We flew back. ATC took us to Turkey, etc., and all through Casablanca, Cairo, all the way back.
okay.
Most of
Do
us
you remember
flew
how
back.
many total number of planes destroyed on the
I
ground?
don't. I had a little different count on it than what I saw.
Okay.
But I know there were planes that did not get back. They got 6 planes back out of the group that we were there.
Okay. And how many went to begin with? Do you
There
remember?
was, I think we had 76 planes in there.
Okay, but some of them turned back. Some of them didn't go all the way
Yeah,
to
some of them went
Baltimore, right?
elsewhere, yeah.
Okay, some
The
of them just
Russians wouldn't allow us, fighters, fighters, P-51s came right along with us. It's
Okay.
amazing, I love that plane too.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
That was what saved our bacon a lot of time. But they wouldn't let them fly, they wouldn't allow them to take off after the Germans that were bombing us. Our friendly, we were alliances with Russia at that
Okay,
time.
so
by
it's
that
almost like
time.
they impounded the P-51s?
No, they just kept them on the ground, period. Wherever they weren't on our base, I know.
Yeah, okay.
But
Oh,
the
they
story
ended up-
I heard that the Russians wouldn't allow them to take off and go after them. So that's
Oh,
how
I
they
see.
come back a couple hours later, whacked a few more.
Okay.
So by the time we got back to base, well, it took us about 2 weeks before we went back. Didn't feel much like starting all over again with flying missions, but
What the heck?
we
right?
went right back at it.
Well, let me ask you, do you know, were you aware of some of the bombers that were able to be salvaged and eventually flown back to, did they come with you at that time? Or
I
did they come another time?
purposely looked to see how many of those that were listed as damaged but flyable that were brought back. And to be perfectly truthful, I never saw, from my checking on the books, I never saw those numbers back on the flight.
Okay.
Ed Hunting had written a book on it. And
Okay.
I had that book naturally. And I purposely looked to see who was on that flight. But they changed something in the book that he was writing. They used to show, write the direction to the formation, who was doing.
Yes, sir.
High,
Yeah, I
low,
remember
etc.
that.
Yeah, that were listed. But I never did see any of those numbers back flying.
Okay.
But then
Because I interviewed a guy once before, not recently, but back in 2005, and he was on that mission, and his plane did survive that bombing attack, and but it had some damage, and they were able to get it repaired.
that could,
But it took about a month or
very well
something
have
before
happened,
they finally started heading down. They had basically the same route you did.
Yeah,
Went down through Turkey, and then
Yeah, right.
where did you say Turkey down to?
Casablanca, we
Casablanca,
said
yeah.
time in Casablanca and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Cairo, we went to Cairo.
Okay.
Incidentally, we got to
It's kind of like a
Cairo.
little vacation, wasn't it?
Yeah, I looked over at Cairo airport and I saw these other planes. They're bigger than B-17s. He said, "Enormous looking. What are they doing? What is that?" The B-29s were parked there. I didn't even know they had such a thing as a B-29. I'm in service all this while.
So
Because
that would
they were
have
hitting-
been in like
They were hitting the Pacific.
July,
Yeah.
July,
Yeah.
August.
Well, that was June.
Probably,
That
I mean, the
was-
mission was 23rd, 24
yeah,
June
right.
of
And it
42.
was about a week or so that
Or
we
41.
were there.
I'm sorry, 44.
I flown back. Yeah, 44.
All right, so about the time y'all were heading back was around sometime in July,
Yeah,
44.
right.
So you saw the B-29s in Cairo.
29s are in
'Cause they were
Cairo.
heading
Yeah,
around
and
it.
they were going to the east, to Japan area, over that
Wow.
way. Well, they could do it. They had more gas, carried
Yeah,
more
they had
gas, and
more,
were
right.
bigger, could go further.
That's why they built them, because they were
Yeah,
going
they were built
almost
special for that.
I don't know,
Yeah.
a couple thousand more miles than you
Yeah.
guys could go.
But at any rate, we
Anyway,
went
okay.
back back and started the usual.
Did you go to Rick's?
Hmm?
Did you go to Rick's in Casablanca?
I didn't.
That's
Truthfully,
nice.
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
We thought about. That was the first thing we thought about was the picture,
Yeah.
Humphrey bit. But no,
Yeah.
we were there, and there were a bunch of little robbers. Those kids, oh boy.
Yeah.
They come around and want to buy your soap, AGI. You want to buy it? I wasn't a GI.
Yeah.
Anyway, but they my navigator got stuck. He says, the kid comes up and shows him a $2,000 bill, franc or whatever the hell
Yeah.
currency they had. And he sold him his sunglasses.
Yeah.
And he opened the thing up, and what was it, a 20, folded so a 20, I guess it was a 20, and here he thought it was 200 or something.
Oh, okay.
He phoned it up the bill, and the poor guy, he told me he's nuts, because the kid took it, he disappeared.
He was gone. He's long gone. Yeah, they're
smart
fast.
little bugger.
Yeah.
Anyway, we ribbed him about that for all the while until we got out. But we got back, we flew out the rest of the mission as scheduled, etc. And I finished up, as I say, on the 13th of August. We flew up, the crew flew their last missions. On that, the thing was, if it were your last mission, you called in and asked permission to celebrate. You buzzed the tower. That was the
Right.
tower. That was the
Yeah.
chance you had to buzz the tower and fire off flares. So that was a big deal. You made your mission. It started out with 25. Halfway through our missions, they raised it to 30, and half of them, they raised it to 35, and said, these people don't want us to get home.
Yeah.
Huh. We kept naming
Well,
it.
they spent all that money
One
getting
of
you
the
there.
five. One of the five. It was Eleanor Roosevelt's five. I forget what the other one was. At any rate, because it was getting easier, we were taking over. We were clearing out. The P-51s were taking care of the 109s and the other German FWs. So our biggest thing was flak.
Yeah.
Because you fly over your target, and as you head into it, they used to put 1,000 feet above you and 1,000 feet below you. They just went and peppered that whole area. As you're driving through, you'd see that big black square and knew that you were going to be the next guy through.
Okay.
And that was a hell of a feeling. I know that I had the best view, if you want to call it that, best, of seeing when the plane was going down, go through the flight, it got hit. You'd see the burst up there, and you'd see the other plane going down. Most of the time they spiral down.
Okay.
If they were going to blow up, they blow up. That was a shocking thing. That was shocking because 10 men.
Kaboom.
But anyway,
all at once.
that's when you went second. If you were first to all you saw was black smoke, But if you followed through, you'd see what happened to the guy in front of you, the group in front of you. So it was a little bit of a horror and hard on the nerve. I think that's one of the reasons the younger guys went slightly nuts. They call it PAPTD, STD, etc. nowadays. But at that time, it was flak happy.
Flak
That's what
happy.
they say,
Yeah,
flak
so you
happy.
go flak happy.
Yeah. Anyway, during those
Any of that
missions,
happened to your crew members?
nothing. The only thing we were damaged once with a shot went through our tail, and of course we just dropped our bombs and we were turning off from it. And boy, our plane went down, he lost control of it. And we went down, I don't know how long, and MacArthur and Zades managed to straighten it out. And we got back okay. We got back, one of the ground crew come over and he stuck his head through the hole of the damn tail. So we were very fortunate. The other time that we had damage was when we were coming back from a mission late, getting back to England. The old cliffs of Dover there, we come in that area. And cloud cover, we had about five or 600 under the clouds, and we dropped down that low, and still flying formation. And all of a sudden, boom, we hit another, either he flew into us or we flew into him, I don't know, riding alongside of us. Practically chopped his tail in half. And we lost about 6 or 7 feet of our wing flapping in the breeze on the right side. But we both made it back to base. We were that close, but we were all flying low. It was very scary. At 500 feet, you don't jump out in a parachute, that's for sure.
It's too low.
Anyway, we were fortunate enough to get back to base safely. And tomorrow was another flight. They had the thing fixed up overnight practically. Those guys were wonderful.
Yeah.
The maintenance crew there. But it was a bit of a shock. We had a few little shocks like that. Nobody was ever hurt. We had some flak go through, and I heard my navigator go like that. It whizzed by his head under the feet of the pilot. But we didn't, holes and that kind of stuff from the flak.
So you got nobody got
damage.
physical injuries.
We were the first crew, I think, that finished the full 35 missions and without loss of anyone of any kind.
Wow.
You know, no one of us got hurt or anything. So fortunate, real fortunate. I'd say things got a little easier. Flak was the worst thing that we went through, more so than fighters.
Okay.
We went to Berlin, Munich, Stuttgart, we did the whole route with all the gasoline refineries and their manufacturing places. And we also bombed the hell out of Munich, I know. I probably flattened that. The thing was, I heard a little story later on about it, that we did not intend to use against the people.
Okay.
Military trial.
Right.
Military targets. But unfortunately, like everything else, it happened, just like it's happened now with the drones that they're throwing over in Afghanistan. But, and we flew back and forth, and I say, and then on the 13th of my birthday, on the 13th of August, they finished their 35th mission, and as we're doing this celebration, buzzing the tower and all that, firing these red flares up. We went to some guy's wheat or rice field. Poor farmer. I think it cost the 388 a couple of bucks to pay him because we burnt up his crop or something like that. And nothing happened to us actually because of it. It was just a little humor.
Yeah, it's your one entitlement.
Yeah.
Your one entitlement to let it rip.
But they let me go home after the 34.
Okay.
And my mother was so lucky. My kid brother had finished his. He was home about 9 days before I was. And Mom was so happy. She had 4 of us in service during the war. My big brother, he joined, my eldest brother, joined Navy Seabees. And between me being an officer, his story was the first thing they did when they hit an island was to build officers' quarters, officers' clubs.
Oh, yeah.
But him and my sister's
those
husband
are priority
was in
items,
the Navy.
you know?
So we had a lot of interfamily stuff there.
Yeah.
The oldest boy was Navy. My sister's husband was Navy. And I was in the Air Corps. Bob, my kid brother, was in B-24s. That was the other thing we were ribbing one another about all the time. But all together, It was the greatest experience any of us went through, and it has remained up here all these years. And the only time it comes out is with our reunions here. We sit around shooting the bull with one another, probably do a little extra tales of woe, that kind of stuff. But I think most of it, I never spoke about. I think most of it, never said, even the only thing was the family ribbing about the service, the humor side of it. But
details like this, you don't ever,
Other than that, as I was saying, it was the greatest experience, I guess, that any of us ever had. And I think it showed up afterwards. But the people at home were a lot different than here. We were all on rations. Well, we were rationed too. I was saving one year, in 45, I was saving my gas coupon so I could go home for the holidays.
Okay.
And of course the war was over, boom, that was the end of all the rationing. They cut it out right off the bat.
Yeah.
And here I got buku gas coupons. I got them with me, actually. I kept a lot of that kind of stuff. I did. I put it all on albums. I have a pretty good record of it. I brought it this time.
Okay.
If we drove, I brought it. But by air, it was just too much to carry, etc.
Okay.
So I got about stacked that high of my memories and what happened and whatever I could collect at the time. Our little short snorters, I still have that. Obviously, everybody signed, etc. Your dollar bills and all that. With whoever you met, signed the money.
Okay.
And I still have that. What else? And any of the things, my Dyersburg parties, we have all the memories of that, I'll tell you about.
Did you do anything
$10 cents.
around Nettishaw as far as doing any kind of visiting
I
off
did
base
not
and
go
stuff?
into Nettishaw, actually. For some reason, I wound up, when we were free, no flying, was in the Officers Club. That's as far as I got. We
Okay.
took the trips to London, we had one when we went up to Nard. We went up to England, Scotland, on one of our couple of days off to play golf. And I remember that well too, a little funny kind of thing. I hadn't been to golf, I'd never played golf in my life, but I whacked balls and, a pail of balls. So the four officers went up to play golf in Scotland.
Okay.
And my first shot landed in the sand. So I got to whack the hell out of her, I broke the club. The head of the club off the club. And I took it back to the pro shop, little old Scotsman chewed my tail out.
Yeah.
Because didn't I know there was a war going on, we were in uniform. He said, the ACs can't be replaced. That was his words. He was a little angry with me.
Yeah.
So I stayed there and drank. The rest of them finished the round. I stayed in the damn club there and had a few
So that
drinks.
was the only club you could get. They didn't have another one to give you? Or he wasn't going to give you another one?
Yeah, it was something else what he said. Didn't I know there was a war going on? They can't be replaced.
I'm not going to let you
Yeah,
have
man,
that.
what are you talking about? But that was it. And as I
Okay.
say, come August, come November,
All right.
we drove. I had the car down there by that time. My wife was with me. We drove home, and I was released, separated. From
How'd you get back, by the way?
home?
Did they fly you back or you come back on
we
a boat?
flew back. Yeah.
Okay.
We flew back. Yeah.
Did you fly back and how did you fly back? What kind of vehicle, what kind of airplane did you fly back in?
The usual two-engine jobs, ATC,
Okay,
Air Transport Command.
okay,
Yes. That's all they used in those days. That was for.
Okay.
I didn't fly back in a
C-47?
B-17 or anything.
no, you came back in a C-47?
Yeah, I guess that's what it
Did your whole
call it
crew do
now.
that or were just the officers?
Yeah. And as I say, we saw, that was just after the Empire State had been hit with the B-25.
Yeah,
You remember that
Right.
story?
You saw
And
them in
we saw
July.
the damage of all the black side. We flew down to Washington, actually. We landed in Washington. They took the train back up to New Jersey.
okay,
So that was it. And my wife was home at that time, because all the while I was in service. But after Connie, she was with me quite a while there.
okay,
After I'd gotten home, she was with me. in Dyersburg. So I mean, I had a pretty good life in that respect, you know,
Okay.
that I had her with me all the while. Very fortunate then for that. And I'd say it lasted 70 years. It's a good work.
What'd you do? What occupation did you end up doing after the war?
Oh, I've had several different careers.
Okay.
I went back to my father. I was working for a dry cleaner delivering clothes and that on a commission basis. And I was making more money than my peers. I just missed the big, I had a car. And in those days, very few people had cars. But my cars cost 15 or 20 bucks. I had to think, my story was that my first 4 cars only cost me 80 bucks. But then he got junky, which went over to Japan. That's what both my brothers, I bought their cars.
Okay.
One of them had a baby and needed money, so I think I gave him $15 or something, $20 for something he paid $15 for.
Okay.
That kind of deal. Ran him 6 months, run the hell out of him, and boom, junked him.
Time to get another car.
So that was that, and this 40 Chevy I had, we went home, I was home prior to that, and I bought this car, it was a 40 Chevy. I had a choice of 2 cars, a 38 Ford or this 40 Chevrolet 4-door for 800 bucks. Brand new, it cost 450 or something or other. But that's when inflated prices, shall we say, because they weren't making cars, not for civilians then.
Yeah.
You know. So I did buy that, but then I couldn't get the gas coupons in to take the car down, so we saved all our stamps we got, and one of my students, I instructed new bombardiers
Okay.
after I finished my missions, and one of my trainees who graduated drove my car home and told my family to give him the car and drive it down to Texas where we were. So so I had the car then and drove home to my house, drove back to New Jersey from Texas. That's where after the war, and then I got out in November 1st. Was the end of my career.
Okay.
388 was, as I say, the whole thing was a wonderful experience for most of us. So I'm still talking, you know me. But anyway, I should throw that in.
Okay.
But we're finishing up here, I think, aren't we?
I think we're done.
Are we finished?
I think so.
Yeah.
Sound like it was a
This is
wonderful
my
time.
young girl said, they're waiting to go to bed, I think. That's